Welcome back to my YouTube channel, where today we begin an extraordinary deep dive into the world of the 1/4 anna, a coin whose story stretches across empires, across kings, across wars, across revolutions, and across the lives of millions of ordinary people who use this single piece of copper as a lifeline in the marketplaces, train stations, dusty roadsides, spice bazaars, and crowded city streets of British India, because the 1/4 anna was not simply money, it was a witness. A silent observer of a nation under colonial rule, a coin that passed through the hands of traders, clerks, soldiers, farmers, merchants, and families who relied on its small value to survive in a world shaped by power, policy, and the ever-expanding reach of the British Crown. And when we start exploring its origins, we are transported back to the early 19th century when the East India Company controlled vast regions of the subcontinent and minted its own coins, laying the foundation for the standardized monetary system that eventually evolved into the modern Indian rupee. And among the many denominations used at the time, the 1/4 anna stood out because it was small enough to be accessible to the poorest citizens yet strong enough to play a crucial role in daily transactions, a balance that made it one of the most circulated coins of the era. And as decades passed and the minting responsibilities shifted from the East India Company to the British Raj, the 1/4 anna continued to evolve with new portraits, new inscriptions, new decorative motifs, and new metals that reflected both technological advances and political messaging, because every change in the design carried a deeper meaning that connected the coin to the socio-political atmosphere of that particular era. And when Queen Victoria ascended the throne and her image began appearing on coins across the empire, the 1/4 anna became a symbol of British sovereignty, with her early portrait, the young head design, representing a youthful queen at the dawn of her long reign, while later Victorian issues introduced more mature engravings that capture her evolving stature and influence. And collectors today study these portrait changes with meticulous fascination because each variation reveals subtle differences in engraving technique, relief depth, facial contour, crown detail, and lettering structure that help determine authenticity, rarity, and value. And then we move into the era of King Edward VII, whose short but influential reign produced some of the most attractive copper coins of the colonial period, with his portrait appearing in a distinctive side profile featuring deeper lines, stronger shadows, and a more realistic depiction of the monarch compared to earlier stylized designs. And Edward VII's 1/4 annas are particularly admired for their crispness when struck well, although many examples produced in the early 1900s suffered from striking issues due to dye wear and equipment stress at the Calcutta and Bombay mints, which means that high-grade specimens with full details, lustrous surfaces, and clean fields are far rarer than people realize. And then we arrive at the era of King George V, whose long reign produced a wide spectrum of 1/4 anna varieties, from the beautifully crafted early issues of the 1910s to the wartime issues struck during World War I when metal shortages, increased production demands, and deteriorating dyes created coins with weaker impressions, softer edges, and uneven surfaces. And these wartime coins are especially cherished by collectors because they reflect a moment in history when global conflict directly affected the quality of everyday currency, adding a dramatic layer of historical significance to even the simplest-looking coin. And the George V era also introduced several notable varieties including different wreath styles, rim thickness variations, mint mark differences, and lettering inconsistencies that have all become important markers for numismatists seeking rare types within a series that was minted in massive quantities. And then we shift into the era of King George VI, whose reign overlapped with World War II, creating yet another period marked by resource limitations, minting pressure, and striking inconsistencies. And the final George VI 1/4 annas, minted in the 1940s, represent the last chapter of the denomination before India gained its independence in 1947, making these coins historically emotional pieces because they symbolize the end of a long colonial era. And when collectors hold one of these final issues, they are reminded of the countless people who used these coins in the final years of British rule, unaware that the monetary system was about to undergo a complete transformation. And beyond the historical journey, the 1/4 anna also captivates collectors with its vast array of errors and varieties, because old manufacturing methods created an environment rich in imperfections, misaligned dyes, weak strikes, off-center strikes, die cracks, filled lettering, double-punch dates, repunched mint marks, planchet flaws, uneven rims, and dozens of other anomalies that today can elevate the value of an otherwise ordinary coin. And advanced collectors hunt these varieties relentlessly, examining every small detail under high magnification to identify the tiniest abnormalities that might turn a low-value coin into a rare treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. And what makes the 1/4 anna even more fascinating is the transformation of its metal composition over time, beginning with thick heavy copper planchets that gave the early coins a solid weighty feel, later replaced by thinner flans and lighter alloys as wartime shortages forced the mints to modify their production standards. And these changes resulted in noticeable differences in color, texture, weight, and durability, making each generation of the 1/4 Anna distinctive in its own way. And when we combine all of these elements, the portraits, the metal changes, the mint locations, the errors, the varieties, the artistic shifts, the historical events, the economic pressures, and the colonial symbolism, we begin to see that the 1/4 Anna is not just a denomination but a complete storybook of India's monetary, political, and cultural evolution, making it one of the most rewarding coins for collectors who appreciate not just value but the living history engraved in every curve, letter, and rim of this extraordinary copper coin. The story of the 1 Anna coin continues from its deep roots in the early British colonial monetary experiments, expanding into a long and fascinating journey of political ambition, economic necessity, technological advancement, and the complex way currency shapes identity. And as we move forward from the earliest Victorian issues into the ever-evolving designs of Edward VII, George V, and the monumental transition to George VI, the coin becomes more than a small aluminum bronze piece. It becomes a historical timeline in metal form, a witness to decades of South Asian transformation, and the 1 Anna denomination itself reflects multiple phases of the subcontinent's colonial economy. So to truly understand how it grew into one of the most collected and historically significant denominations today, we must explore the massive expansion of minting systems, the introduction of uniform die engraving standards, the rise of mechanized mint presses, and the implementation of quality control procedures that drastically changed how Indian coins were produced. During the early 20th century, the British administration significantly upgraded the Calcutta and Bombay mints with faster steam-driven presses, improved alloy mixing equipment, and new die-hardening furnaces that produced sharper relief and more consistent metal thickness, and this engineering improvement directly impacted the 1 Anna coin, especially the George V series, 1911 to 1936, which introduced the famous crowned king portrait that collectors admire today, and along with that portrait came a deeper level of artistic styling, where engravers from the Royal Mint collaborated with Indian mint masters to create a uniform yet culturally adaptive design, including floral patterns inspired by Indo-Islamic art, bead circle borders that enhanced the overall symmetry, and deeper engraving that allowed the coin to withstand wear from tropical conditions. During these decades, the British Indian economy was rapidly expanding. Railways, industries, administrative departments, postal networks, and military operations required massive amounts of coinage circulation, so the 1 Anna coin became one of the most essential denominations for everyday transactions, used by merchants, farmers, postmen, railway ticket counters, textile mills, and street vendors across the region. And this heavy public dependence increased its minting volumes into millions per year, with peak production seen in the early 1920s. Especially due to the post-World War I economic restructuring that demanded stable mid-range denominations like the Anna, and while the earliest 1 Anna coins were mostly copper-nickel or bronze, later issues experimented with different alloy ratios to combat corrosion and reduce minting costs, leading to the introduction of a distinctive nickel-brass blend that gave the coin greater durability and an eye-catching golden hue, and this composition change is one of the main reasons collectors today see variations in color, tone, and surface texture among 1 Anna coins from different years. Another important development was the increased use of mint mark systems, especially once the Bombay Mint installed its updated machinery in the 1920s, leading to certain issues with small letters, tiny dots, and placement variations that today make some dates dramatically more valuable than others. Because even a small shift in dot location or a slightly rotated die can transform a common 1 Anna coin into a high-value numismatic rarity, and this is also the era where we begin to see planchet variations caused by resource shortages during major world events, most notably World War II, which pushed the British administration to reduce nickel usage, forcing more bronze-based compositions, leading to mismatched tones, lighter weights, and softer edges, differences that many collectors treasure. And all of this complexity means that the 1 Anna coin is not just one coin, it is hundreds of micro-variations spread across decades. Meanwhile, the political climate of India was intensifying as independence movements surged across the subcontinent, and the coin silently witnessed these shifts. Protests, administrative reorganizations, reforms, the rise of local leadership, and the growing tension between colonial authority and indigenous voices, and during the George VI period, 1938 to 1947, we see some of the most symbolically interesting 1 Anna issues, because these coins represent the final phase of British power in India, minted at a time when the British Raj was unraveling, global war conditions were pressuring the economy, and large numbers of people were beginning to imagine a future where coins would no longer bear the face of a distant monarch. the engraving details of George VI 1 Anna coins show a more modernized portrait style with cleaner facial lines, stronger jaw contour, and highly refined lettering produced through improved die engraving. Imported from London, and the borders of these coins were made slightly thicker to increase longevity in circulation, since they were constantly used in trade markets, grain shops, legal offices, telegram counters, school fees, and daily household buying. Toward the end of the 1940s, the minting strategy shifted dramatically due to geopolitical uncertainty, causing several short-run dies, experimental blanks, and emergency strike issues to appear, many of which were produced in limited batches, and today rank among the most sought-after 1 Anna varieties ever discovered. Beyond this, historians now believe that certain 1 Anna dies were reused or modified during rushed wartime minting cycles, which created hybrid varieties, coins with mixed elements from 2 different design periods, something that often went unnoticed at the time but is now one of the most studied topics in South Asian numismatics. After Indian independence in 1947, the 1 Anna denomination underwent a symbolic transformation because while the coin remained temporarily in use, it was now part of a nation breaking away from the colonial monetary system, and soon the Anna-based structure was phased out in favor of a fully decimalized rupee, officially ending the Anna era by the mid-20th century, making the 1 Anna coin not only a monetary tool but a historic relic of a bygone system. And its withdrawal from circulation marks one of the biggest currency transitions in South Asian history. Today, collectors around the world, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, the UK, Canada, and the US, seek 1 Anna coins for their beauty, their rarity, their historical weight, and their connection to a time when every detail of a coin reflected political authority, artistic intention, and the economic heartbeat of millions of people, and numismatic researchers continue to uncover new varieties. Subtle errors, misplaced dots, incorrect legends, double die strikes, broad strikes, off-center punches, re-engraved dies, and experimental planchets, proving that the 1 Anna coin remains one of the richest and deepest collecting fields in all of British Indian numismatics, a coin whose story cannot be finished in one paragraph and whose importance continues to grow with every new discovery, auction, and historical study, making Part 1 be a continuation of the long journey of this extraordinary piece of monetary history. When we move into the world of 1 Anna rarities, errors, high-value dates, and the extraordinary varieties that have taken the numismatic world by storm, we enter a realm where tiny differences in mint marks, die alignment, planchet composition, misplaced letters, broken dies, and subtle engraving inconsistencies can transform an ordinary-looking coin into a treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And the fascinating part is that because the 1 Anna denomination was produced over several decades, across multiple mints, under constantly shifting economic conditions and technological capabilities, the number of unique collectible varieties is far greater than what casual collectors imagine, and this deep complexity is exactly why 1 Anna coins continue to rise in demand across major auction houses worldwide. For example, the George V series has some of the most sought-after rarities, especially the early 1911 to 1912 issues, where the initial dies used in India were still being optimized, causing several coins to come out with slight portrait variations, tilted crowns, uneven lettering spacing, or faint die clash marks, and while these imperfections were not considered errors at the time, they are now highly valuable because they represent the early experimentation phase of British Indian mint production during the shift from Victorian to modern engraving systems. Among the most famous rarities is the 1917 1 Anna with a Bombay mint placed unusually close to the rim, a positioning error created when the mint was using a worn-down punch tool, and collectors today pay extremely high premiums for well-preserved examples, especially in high grades, with some pieces fetching over $400 to $600 in private sales. Another critically important rarity is the 1920 off-metal strike, where a batch of 1 Anna coins, likely due to a planchet shortage, was accidentally struck on bronze blanks intended for a lower denomination, creating a darker, heavier, and visually distinct coin that stands out instantly under proper lighting, and these off-metal strikes are extremely scarce, often crossing the $1,000 mark at large auctions when authenticated. The George VI period also produced some incredible rarities, especially during wartime minting between 1940 and 1945, when global metal shortages resulted in inconsistent alloy mixes, producing 1 Anna coins with unusual coloration, weight deviations, and softer rim edges, and some extreme wartime errors include double-struck coins, broad strikes without rims, and weakly struck reverse legends due to deteriorating dies, errors that are now among the most aggressively hunted pieces in the market. Another major rarity is the 1942 1 Anna with a missing, with a Bombay mint mark that failed to appear on a small percentage of coins, likely due to a filled die or accidental polishing that removed the punch imprint. And this No.1942 variety is extremely valuable and often sells for several $100s depending on condition, but one of the absolute giants among 1 Ana rarities is the 1919 double die obverse, identifiable by its slightly shifted portrait outline and shadow-like doubling around the king's facial features and lettering. And this error is believed to have occurred due to misalignment during die preparation when technicians accidentally repositioned the master die slightly before the final strike, making this variety one of the most visually dramatic and historically significant 1 Ana errors ever discovered. Another major category consists of repunched mint marks, especially in the Bombay mint issues of the late 1930s and early 1940s, where the dot was accidentally placed in the wrong position and then corrected by punching a second, leaving behind a ghost-like partial that is visible under magnification. And these repunched varieties are extremely desirable among specialists because they represent clear evidence of mid-production corrections made under pressure. Collectors also pay huge premiums for die cracks, particularly long, branching cracks that extend from the rim into the portrait or legends, as these were caused by overstressed dies that continued to be used despite damage, likely due to wartime shortages or production deadlines. And 1 Ana coins showing heavy die cracks are becoming rarer every year as collectors lock them away in long-term holdings. Yet another exciting category includes off-center strikes, where the design is noticeably shifted, exposing a blank crescent of metal on one side and compressing the portrait onto the opposite edge. These errors were extremely rare in earlier decades because mint workers manually monitored presses, but during periods of rushed wartime production, a small number of off-center 1 Ana coins were released by accident. And today, even a 5 to 10% off-center strike can command impressive prices, while extreme 20 to 40% off-center examples can exceed $1,000 in top grades. Then there are the proof-like and specimen finish 1 Ana coins, created either intentionally for officials or unintentionally when fresh dies struck polished planchets, resulting in mirror-like fields and sharp frosted details. And these coins, while visually stunning, are exceedingly rare because the mints in colonial India were not officially producing proof sets for wide distribution, making any proof-like 1 Ana coin a premium rarity. The highest auction prices for 1 Ana coins come from these extremely scarce varieties, with top examples of the 1911 to 1920 error series reaching $1,500 plus in prestigious auctions and exceptional wartime errors pushing near $2,000 for perfectly preserved pieces, especially when certified by top grading companies. Equally valuable are early dies that feature incorrect or partial legends, such as faint traces of re-engraving under letters, small serif inconsistencies, or missing strokes in the word India, all of which came from hand corrected dies where engravers attempted to restore worn lettering, accidentally creating collectible anomalies. Collectors also treasure the transition year varieties, particularly those minted between 1946 and 1947 when the final George VI 1 Ana coins were produced during the last days of the British Raj. The minting atmosphere was chaotic, resources were strained, and dies were reused or modified more frequently, leading to a wide range of hybrid varieties and misstruck pieces that today represent the dramatic political ending of an entire era. All of these rarities, errors, and high-value varieties make the 1 Ana coin one of the richest and most rewarding collecting fields in South Asian numismatics, and with every passing year, new varieties continue to be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors who re-examine old collections, estate lots, and inherited coin boxes, proving that the 1 Ana denomination still holds mysteries waiting to be uncovered as part of its long and extraordinary journey across history and metal. And as we continue exploring the extraordinary world of 1 Ana rarities, it becomes even clearer that this denomination holds far more secrets than collectors initially realize, because when you examine each decade of its production, from Victoria to George VI, you discover countless microvariations and oddities that turn ordinary-looking copper-nickel discs into high-value collectibles. And one of the most fascinating categories that has gained massive attention in recent years is the group of misaligned die strikes, especially those where the obverse and reverse do not align at the proper 180-degree orientation, resulting in rotation errors that range from mild 15-degree shifts to extreme 90-degree or even nearly 180-degree rotations. And these rotational anomalies occurred when mint workers failed to tighten the dies correctly or when the screw assemblies loosened due to vibration during high-speed wartime production, making every rotation error a highly desirable piece for specialists, and perfectly preserved examples often exceed hundreds of dollars in international auctions. Another remarkable category involves the planchet defects, including lamination peels, flaked surfaces, fissures, and incomplete alloy mixing, all of which were commonly seen during the early 20th century when metal quality control was still evolving. And coins exhibiting these natural manufacturing flaws are often far rarer than collectors think, especially when the peel exposes underlying copper layers, creating dramatic textures that appear almost artistic in their accidental beauty, and these lamination errors can bring unexpectedly high prices depending on their size and visual appeal. The 1 Anna series also includes some spectacular broad strikes, where the coin was not properly confined by the retaining collar during striking, causing the metal to spread outward and form a wider, flatter disc with distorted lettering. These broad strikes are visually striking and are among the most dramatic errors possible in colonial Indian coinage because they represent complete mechanical failure within the minting press, and collectors are willing to pay premium prices for these, especially if both the portrait and reverse wreath remain visible. Among the George V and George VI issues, there are also rare cud breaks, formed when a chunk of the die edge broke off, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin. And these cuds are prized because they are unique to each individual die, meaning that no two coins show the exact same shape, size, or texture of the metal blob, turning each cud error into a one-of-one collectible. Even more valuable are the full rim cuds, where large segments of the rim appear swollen or melted, which can fetch extremely high prices due to their rarity. Another phenomenon found primarily in earlier Victorian 1 Anna coins is clashed die marks, created when the obverse and reverse dies accidentally struck each other without a planchet in between, imprinting faint outlines of design elements from one side onto the other, and coins showing clear die clash impressions, such as parts of the king's portrait faintly visible behind a reverse wreath, are incredibly desirable among collectors because they provide direct physical evidence of minting accidents. Equally important are the engraver variety differences, especially in Queen Victoria's series, where multiple engravers produced subtle design differences in the portrait, hair, curl positioning, gown folds, and facial features, and because the colonial mints did not always standardize these dies strictly, several of these engravings entered circulation simultaneously, creating minor variations that today command high premiums among specialists who categorize each die lineage. Then there are the trial strikes, coins that were struck during testing phases using unfinished dies, incomplete master punches, or incorrect planchets, and while these were never meant to leave the mint, a tiny number of these specimens somehow escaped into circulation during the busy years of early colonial minting, and any verified trial strike can easily exceed thousands of dollars due to its extreme rarity. Another category that excites experts is the mule coins, created when mismatched dies, such as pairing an obverse of one year with a reverse of another, were mistakenly installed in minting presses. And these mule errors are exceptionally rare because the minting workflow usually prevented such mismatches, but several documented 1 Anna mule varieties exist and are considered holy grails in the field, often reaching record auction prices when authenticated. The British Indian 1 Anna is also famous for its repunched dates, where engravers corrected misstruck numerals by punching the year again, leaving behind visible traces of the earlier attempt. And these double-punched or triple-punched dates can create extremely valuable varieties, especially the heavily repunched numbers in the 1910 to 1920 era where multiple overlapping digits create bold distortions under magnification. Collectors additionally look for overdates, such as a digit from a previous year faintly visible under the surface because the mint reused leftover dies from earlier years, making these overdates historically important and highly valuable. Another particularly rare class includes the ghost portrait coins, where faint secondary outlines of the king's face or crown appear due to a partially shifted die or insufficient metal flow during striking, and these ghost images are visually fascinating, giving the coin an ethereal double-layered design that collectors aggressively pursue. The late colonial George VI 1 Anna issues are also known for their weak strikes, especially during 1941 to 1943 when die wear and metal shortages caused the portrait details to appear flat. And although weak strikes are common, sharply struck survivors from these years are incredibly rare and command high premiums because they represent the intended design at full clarity. Among the most visually dramatic errors are the double-struck coins, where the planchet was struck twice at slightly different angles, creating a shadow-like duplicate of the portrait or reverse lettering, and some double strikes are so pronounced that the coin appears almost 3D, making them extremely expensive in modern auctions. Off-metal strikes also dominate the high-value category, especially those struck on bronze, copper, or even foreign planchets accidentally mixed into the minting supply during chaotic periods, and authenticated off-metal 1 Anna coins often sell for more than nearly any other error type because they represent rare minting accidents combined with unique metal compositions. Collectors also prize the elusive proof-like early Victorian 1 Anna pieces, which show mirror fields and deep cameo details even though official proof coins were not produced for circulation, and some of these proof-like strikes have achieved legendary status in auctions due to their stunning appearance and extreme scarcity. and as the global demand for British Indian coins continues to rise, these 1 anna rarities, whether errors, overdates, mule strikes, engraver variations, misaligned dies, broad strikes, rotation errors, trial strikes, or off-metal pieces, continue to set new price records, with top examples bringing thousands of dollars in major auctions worldwide, proving again that even a small, once common denomination like the 1 anna can become a treasure chest of historical, artistic, and financial value for collectors who know where to look. As we move into this final deep journey of the 1 anna coin, the story becomes even more emotionally powerful because now we explore not only the rarest pieces, not only the most unusual striking errors or the most valuable auction results, but the true soul of the coin itself, the reason collectors feel an almost spiritual connection when they hold a 1 anna in their hand, because every crease, every ding, every worn surface, and every carefully preserved, uncirculated shine tells a direct story from the past, a story of merchants in busy Calcutta bazaars counting annas under yellow lanterns, of farmers buying grain at dawn, of schoolchildren saving annas to buy sweets, of travelers paying for railway tickets while the steam engines roared across the subcontinent, of families budgeting their hard-earned money in a colonial world where every anna mattered. And when we think of how many millions of people touched these coins through generations, it becomes clear why the 1 anna is more than a collectible. It is a human artifact, a silent witness to everyday life between empires, wars, social change, and the rising voice of a nation seeking independence, and within this emotional depth lies a dimension of collecting that goes far beyond rarity guides or minting records, because the sentimental and historical value of a coin can sometimes exceed even its monetary price, especially for collectors who inherited these coins from grandparents or great-grandparents who lived through the final years of the British Raj, and these inherited coins carry not just metal value but the weight of honor, memory, and family story, and this is why even heavily worn 1 anna coins are treasured and preserved with pride, because every scratch tells a story of survival in a world that was rapidly transforming. But alongside this emotional side, the investment value of 1 anna coins is rising dramatically in recent years due to increasing global interest in South Asian numismatics, with collectors from the United States, Europe, Canada, Australia, and the Middle East entering the scene, bidding aggressively on top-grade pieces and pushing market prices higher year after year. And one of the strongest drivers of this increase is the scarcity of high-grade examples, because most 1 anna coins circulated heavily in daily markets for decades, meaning uncirculated or full-luster pieces from the early 1900s are truly rare, and coins graded MS62, MS63, or MS64 by top grading companies often achieve shocking auction results due to demand far exceeding supply, especially for the Victorian and Edward VII series, where the earliest portrait types are often found in poor condition, so collectors pay huge premiums for coins with sharp hair details, crisp lettering, and full rim integrity. And another factor fueling the price surge is the discovery of new die varieties as researchers and hobbyists examine old collections with modern tools, using high-resolution macro photography, digital microscopy, and advanced die matching techniques to identify varieties that were completely unknown 30, 40, or even 80 years ago. And every newly discovered variety, whether a repunched date, a rare mintmark placement, a doubled letter, or a unique die break, adds a new chapter to the story of the 1 anna and increases collector enthusiasm even more, creating a snowball effect in the market where more attention leads to more demand, more research, more discoveries, and therefore higher value. Moreover, the global shift toward online coin auctions has brought unprecedented visibility to Indian coins, allowing collectors who never had access to physical auctions in London or New York to participate with just a smartphone, and this expanded buyer base has dramatically changed the market, pushing even common 1 anna coins into premium territory if they show sharp details or unusual characteristics, and this surge in demand is also giving new importance to certification, with graded 1 anna coins selling at 2 to 5 times the price of raw coins because buyers want authentication, grade guarantee, and long-term investment security. Another important trend is the rising interest in complete sets, where collectors attempt to assemble every year, every mint variant, every die style, and every monarch portrait in sequence. And because certain years like 1917, 1920, 1933, and late 1940s issues are extremely hard to find in high grade, completing such sets is a challenge that drives up the value of these key years even further, and some collectors go even deeper, building advanced sets that include errors, overdates, mule strikes, and experimental alloys, making 1 anna collecting one of the most complex and rewarding fields in numismatics. Yet perhaps the most moving aspect of the 1 anna's legacy is how it captures the transition of a nation from colonial rule to independence, because the final George VI 1 anna coins minted between 1946 and 1947, were circulating at the very moment India was preparing to become a free nation, and this historical context gives these coins symbolic significance far beyond their financial worth, making them cherished not only by collectors but by historians and cultural archivists who see these coins as surviving witnesses to a monumental turning point. And when you combine this deep history, artistic beauty, copper glow, intricate engraving, political symbolism, minting errors, rare varieties, and valuable auction results, the 1 Anna coin becomes one of the richest, deepest, and most emotionally powerful coin collecting experiences in the world, admired not only for its financial potential but for the living history it preserves in every curve, every letter, every portrait, and every worn-down surface that has traveled across generations. And as this journey continues deeper into the legacy of the 1 Anna coin, the story becomes even more captivating because the more we analyze the tiny imperfections, the shifting metallurgical compositions, the evolving portrait styles, and the countless subtle minting characteristics spread across decades, the more we realize that each 1 Anna coin holds a different chapter of history inside it. Almost like every coin is a page from a massive unwritten book documenting life in colonial India. Capturing the hum of old markets, the sound of busy railway platforms, the clinking of shopkeepers' cash boxes, and the conversations of ordinary people who used these coins every single day without knowing that one day collectors around the world would study them with such passion. And this is why the 1 Anna continues to gain value even in the global collector market. Because coins that represent real human history naturally attract deep emotional and financial interest, especially when their origin lies in a nation that later rose to independence, creating even more significance around every design choice, portrait detail, and mint mark. And when we look at the global numismatic landscape today, 1 Anna coins are becoming stars in major auctions, especially when they appear with outstanding surfaces, perfectly struck details, intense original luster, or rare color toning that elevates the copper-nickel alloy into a gleaming spectrum of blues, purples, and golds under proper lighting. And toned coins, once ignored, are now extremely sought after, especially by collectors who appreciate natural patina as a form of metallic art created over decades of quiet aging, and these beautifully toned 1 Anna coins often fetch much higher prices because they stand out visually and create emotional impact the moment they are viewed. Another reason the 1 Anna is becoming a long-term investment favorite is because the supply is shrinking. Many collectors are locking away rare dates, high-grade pieces, and dramatic error types permanently into private collections, meaning fewer top-quality coins appear for sale each year, and when scarcity increases while demand rises, prices inevitably move upward, and this pattern is already visible as certain years that were once considered common are now becoming semi-key dates simply because high-grade survivors are so few. Furthermore, the cultural renaissance surrounding South Asian history in the modern world is inspiring younger collectors to preserve artifacts from the colonial era as a way of connecting to their heritage, and this new generation of collectors is driving demand even higher, ensuring that the 1 Anna market will continue to grow for decades to come. Collectors and historians are also fascinated by how each monarch's portrait tells its own story. Victoria's early coins reflect imperial confidence. Edward VII's give a sense of transition between eras. George V's coins show both pre-war stability and wartime strain, and George VI's final issues carry the quiet tension of a world on the edge of monumental change as India approached independence, meaning each portrait on the 1 Anna series is not just a design but a snapshot of a political moment frozen in metal, and this historical layering is yet another reason why the coin remains so compelling. When we examine the extreme rarities, such as the overdates, mule pairs, off-metal strikes, and dramatic misstrikes, we see coins that are so unique that no two pieces in the world are identical, making them fascinating trophies for serious numismatists, and these coins, when combined with authenticated provenance from major collections, can reach truly astonishing prices, especially as international collectors continue pouring into the market, and beyond the technical elements, beyond the auction records, beyond the rarity charts and grading scales. The true beauty of the 1 Anna coin lies in its ability to connect modern collectors to a world that no longer exists, a world of hand-operated mints, colonial engravers, steam-powered presses, bustling Indian bazaars, horse-drawn carts, steam locomotives, and millions of ordinary people who lived through extraordinary changes. And because coins survive long after buildings crumble, long after streets transform, and long after memories fade, the 1 Anna stands today as a timeless survivor of the past, a small but powerful symbol of endurance, history, human struggle, and the journey of a nation that eventually stepped into freedom. And as collectors continue discovering new varieties, and as auction houses continue setting new price records, the story of the 1 Anna will only grow richer, deeper, and more widely appreciated, proving again that sometimes the smallest coins carry the greatest history, the greatest beauty, and the greatest collectible potential. making the 1 anna not just a coin but a legacy preserved in copper and nickel, traveling from century to century and hand to hand until it finally reaches the collectors of today who recognize its true importance and protect it for the generations of tomorrow. And with all this incredible history, rarity, value, emotional significance, and timeless legacy, the 1 anna coin remains one of the most captivating pieces ever produced in the Indian subcontinent, cherished by collectors around the world and destined to rise even higher in value as time goes on, making it a true treasure of numismatic history and a coin whose story will continue shining brighter with every passing year. Thanks for watching.